excuse. If you want to get involved, there are so many different ways for you to get involved.
Hi folks, and welcome to Humans of the Pro-Life Movement, an initiative of the Pro-Life Guys podcast where we feature the incredible women and men from across Canada and around the world who are making sacrifices of their time and energy and finances to serve preborn children, to support families, and to transform our culture. And for the first time in a while, we are going south of the border. We are going away from the Canadian pro-life activists, and we are going all the way down to Florida. Jacinta, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I am doing super well. I'm so glad that you reached out to me and asked about being a guest on this show. We're always looking for more people to be a part of the program because what we're trying to do is showcase who the pro-life movement is truly made up of. The mainstream media and whomever is putting out their stereotypical pro-lifer. And I'm hoping that we're kicking down some walls by showing who it is that is really involved in the pro-life movement. And to kick us off, let's start off with a little bit about who you are. What makes you tick? Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jacinta.
All right. Thank you so much, Cam. I really appreciate it. This is just an honor, honestly. I've been involved with the pro-life movement for upwards to 10 to 12 years. So I started when I was around 17. I said to myself, there's an initiative that I want to get involved with, and it's going to just be one thing, and I want to put all of my effort into it. Ironically, at 17, I knew exactly what I was going to be working with because the year prior, at 16, I did not think the pro-life mission was going to be my focal point. I am a Catholic by birth. We're a very strong Catholic family, but I will be honest, at the age of 16, I was actually pro-choice. So everybody, their whole concept, when I tell anybody in the mission this, they're like, what? And I'm like, yes. So here's my spiel. I started college early. I was dual enrolled. I was a bio major. I was going to be a doctor. And I learned so much in science. Then I just knew that at 4 months in gestation, the baby was not a baby. That was my take on it. And so I was really kind of frustrated that the church was all like, you can't do anything in terms of an abortion from this conception, until birth, from the point of conception until birth, just please don't touch the baby, right? And I was like, it's not a baby, it's a cell. I can tell you this. I have books, right? I have science behind me, right? I know this. So I was really frustrated by all the back and forth debates, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to look into this. And I actually looked up images of what very early term abortions look like because I wanted to prove my point. I wanted to prove my case that if it's very, very early on, you're not doing anything wrong by having an abortion. Okay, so then science kind of slapped me back in the face because number one, every human being develops differently, whether we like that or not, right? You have 4-year-olds that are taller than other 4-year-olds. You have 5-year-olds that can speak better than other 5-year-olds. Babies in gestation actually develop at slightly quicker, slightly slower rates, right? And what I found was what I did not want to find. I found a very early term abortion where the baby looked like a baby. And I'm like, crap. I said, man, this looks like a little human being that was just demolished. And I said, that's not right. At 4 months, it still looked like a little baby. And I said, something's very wrong with this. I cannot tell a mother when her baby looks like a baby. Scientifically, I cannot tell her that. And then why would that be the precursor that it looks like a baby that would grant it the dignity that it should be allowed to continue on living, right? A lot of things don't look, like symmetrical human beings, right? If you're a stump, you don't have your arms and legs, you don't technically look like a human being anymore. Does that negate, your ability to live? So that's kind of when the wheels in my head started turning, and I realized that I could not honestly put a marker on when this entity had value and dignity. And I got mad. I was like, this is insane. For people that be out here lying to moms, telling them it's a blob of tissue, that they can do whatever they want with it. These mothers have no idea what their child looks like in utero. And they're not asked to. They're not given the opportunity to be curious about that. It's just, if you don't want it, get rid of it. So by 17, I said, okay, Jacinta, it's going to be something, got to think about something. And I ruled out a couple other things. I said, I'm just going to do pro-life. I didn't really know how to get involved. And that's kind of when I started touching base with different organizations and seeing their approaches. And I opened myself up to an entire new world. There's a lot going on in this ministry, which is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. Yeah, that's pretty much how this all got started. So
Love it. I find that so cool on so many different levels. That idea of like the number of people I've spoken to would be like, no, dude, I will pull out my science textbook and I will show you that human life does not begin at fertilization. And then they do it and they're
right.
like, oh, whoops.
Oh,
The number of times I've referred to not only post secondary textbooks, but high school textbooks or even middle school textbooks when we talk about meiosis and you pull out your pipe cleaners all over again. And
yeah,
you realize that yeah, though they may not look necessarily like you and I at the first day of fertilization as a human zygote or an early embryo, as we often talk about, obviously on the Pro Life Guys podcast, asking the question of why. Why don't they look like you or I? Why aren't they able to do what you and I can do?
right.
It's because of how old they are. And so abortion is age-based discrimination. And I love how, with that information, you didn't like skulk off to your corner and be like, oh, whatever, like there's probably a religious textbook or something like that. Like to take that and say at 17, I want to do something. I want to do something that's going to make a difference. I think that's incredible. And I'd love to dive into a little bit more of what you found. As you mentioned, there's so many different pro-life entities. There's so many different initiatives and perspectives on how to, quote unquote, fix the problem. And in chatting with you before we started recording, one of your great passions is kind of drawing not only groups together, but trying to help people find where their sweet spot is and less of the this is the only thing that's effective. Everyone should stop doing everything else and start doing this, but rather find your passion, find where your abilities are most needed and most relevant. Let's talk a little bit about what you found from your different research and involvement with different groups a little bit.
Okay, absolutely. So I was first introduced to an approach to how to speak to people regarding abortion very, I would say, aggressively. I was at FIU and Center for Bioethical Reform was coming with the GAP project. And so they were coming with the big billboards and all that. And they really went home on the hard parts of what abortion is. And that was an approach that I'd never seen before. Usually I was introduced to dialogues about abortion, especially from a religious context, being Catholic and talking to a Protestant who was in favor of abortion. How do we go about this and talk about it from a religious perspective? Theirs was very image based. And, but at the same time, it resonated with me. Unfortunately, it didn't resonate with a lot of students to some capacity because it's a sensitive topic. But from a scientific perspective, they broke down the components of the DNA of the baby and how this was also a way to support their position that it looks like a life now, and at the points where it doesn't look like a life, let's unpack what life actually entails from a very Platonic perspective, like no religion, no philosophy involved, just bare bones, flesh, what's there. And so the embryo had its own unique DNA, right? So that really resonated with me. And so what I learned from them, even though it was very strong and rigorous and graphic, was that educating people on what was going on was actually going to open the minds of the public. And so I remember they came for a weekend. They did a talk to students that wanted to help them out on Saturday, and then on Sunday they did the whole like GAP project. Or I think it was maybe Sunday and then Monday because there were more students on campus. But so the following day I wanted to help out. And so I'm passing out flyers. I'm like, this is great. Like this works with me. I know how to help people kind of understand why this is significant because I'm going to explain it to them from a contextual standpoint of this is what's actually happening. Like, I know maybe you have your own opinion about it. Maybe you think that it's the responsibility of the mom to make a choice versus what she wants to do with her own body. But this is what's occurring. Are you okay with that? Right? So that approach really, really worked well with me. And then when I left FIU, I learned about kind of the more political way to get involved. So Currently, I'm on the board with Florida Right to Life. I'm their millennial coordinator. Yeah, it's really great. Um, they're so awesome. Oh my goodness. They are so cool and they're so embedded from the political standpoint. They know the legislators, they know the politicians that are really going to back up the pro life initiative. And they've been holding like the pro life cause in Florida by the reins. Like, oh my goodness. I mean, look, no, perspectively though, I think this is important because what people don't understand about Florida and why we really have had a hard time gaining traction in the pro life movement is because Florida is a tourist state and people from Georgia and Alabama and Louisiana, where things have gotten incredibly pro life, they come down here to get abortions, right? I've met people from Georgia that come to Jacksonville to get abortions. So Jacksonville, Orlando, and Miami are hot spots for abortions. In Jacksonville alone, we have 4 abortion clinics, right? Which is insane. Why do you need 4 clinics, right? Well, it's happening and a lot of people are in favor of it, and you could cut us in half, with a knife, with the amount of people that are in favor of it versus people that are opposed to it. So it's not that there's no pro-life activity going on legislatively here in the state, it's that it is a split down the middle as to which way we're going to go, and so nothing moves, right? So but we have had huge like wins in the state of Florida. Up until last year, January, it was okay for a minor to get an abortion if she let her parents know that she was going to get it. She did not have to get the parents' consent to have the abortion. All they had to do was mail out a little postcard to the parents saying, this girl's going to go get an abortion, right? Mind you, that minor cannot get medication at her high school without the approval of the mom. She cannot get her ears pierced without the approval of mom or dad. She can't get a tattoo. She can't get a driver's license. But she can stop an entire biological process in her body via the help of a physician that her parents have never once met, okay, legally in the state of Florida, right, with this law. So I was actually at the hearing in Tallahassee where we discussed why this was ridiculous. And I was so happy that so many parents came out and they were like, no, you're not going to let my kid go up there and do X, Y, Z. Because honestly, even for pro-choice people, this is not a safe law, where your child can just go around you and do whatever they want to. I mean, what else can that doctor offer that girl? And all they need is a sticky note. Like, that's ridiculous. So we did win that case. So now it is illegal for a minor to get an abortion without the consent of a parent. So that was really great. And Florida Right to Life is just on point with this. Like, they're beasts. Like, they don't let anything slip underneath them. They are awesome. So that's kind of the political approach, and I think it's really good. With regards to incorporating students with that, which I have introduced them to Students for Life, and we've networked, which is really awesome. Students need to understand the matrix of the political process of getting good laws for babies put in place. And so I've been learning how to do that with them, and it's been fun, but it's a lot of work and trying to help other students understand that. But it's coming together. Like, even with Students for Life, they have a political chapter now. So that aspect of the pro-life battle amongst our younger people is taking win. So that's awesome.
That's fantastic, and I think that you hit on so many essential points there. That trying to get people connected with what's going to resonate with them and how they can use their skills to resonate with others. Right? That obviously, as an organization
Right.
I work for, we use abortion victim photography as well. And like you said, this is a very kind of cut and dry exploration of what abortion is doing, and anchoring the conversation around the humanity of the preborn, political ends. Do I blame politicians for not bringing abortion victim photography up on the stand with them? No, that's absolutely not an appropriate
Right.
setting to develop pro-life legislation in a lot of places, right? I mean, maybe that works in some places, but most of the places that I've been, that's probably not going to be a productive end. And so I think you hit the nail on the head that we need to look at what is the need and what are we most capable of doing. I think that's phenomenal. And with that then, so you said that you've been involved with the pro-life movement for around, I don't know, 10 years now, since you were a teenager. And that has
Yeah.
probably taken you through countless different rallies and meetings like you've mentioned. I'm wondering if there's a couple of memorable experiences, maybe a meeting or a rally or an event that you were at that really stands out in your mind as one of the most memorable experiences you've been a part of?
Sure, absolutely. A few come to mind. Um, and I'm gonna go back to Miami. Miami is amazing for pro life activity, contrary to popular belief. Um, and it's funny at how that's kind of where all of this got started, because the mindset of Miami is promiscuity, right? It's like, do whatever you want with your body, do have fun, go and live your life, right? But after so much time engaging in that mindset, you kind of are like, this doesn't really work. I kind of don't want, my guy cheating on me. I really don't like my girl leaving the house at midnight. So Miami's a mindset at some capacity. But people are strong, and people love, and people have desires for families, and people care. And I was really impacted by one encounter for a couple that came up to me while I was helping CVR. I was helping them pass out flyers, and it was a young couple. They were college students. And right out the bat, the girl was like, I just feel like this is a bit extra. Like, I think this is a bit much. I understand abortion is sad. But does it really need to be positioned this way? I mean, you're calling it like a Holocaust, and I just don't feel like that's proper, appropriate. And I said, well, if you think about it in terms of how many times this happens a day, you're looking at roughly 3,000 babies a day, is that good? And she was like, well, I guess not. And so her boyfriend comes in and is like, well, what about in cases of rape or incest? Like, what if the woman is raped? Don't you still want the law to be there? Like, yes, we don't want this to happen so many times, but isn't it our responsibility to make sure that the law is there just in case this happened, to this girl? And I didn't have to say anything. She immediately looked over at him and said, I'm keeping my baby. And I was like, whoa. And he kind of looked at her like, really? Like, if this actually happened, you would keep the baby? And that always stuck with me, because I think what happened when that argument is presented is that immediately you start thinking that this is the rapist's child, right? You forget that it's her kid too. Nobody talks about it from that perspective. And there's a lot of crisscrossing of logic in the pro-life debate, especially from the pro-choice perspective. It's not the father's baby until it's the rapist that's involved. Now it's the father's baby alone, right? So this disingenuine means of communication causes a lot of problems. And I think we actually have to do a lot of listening, right? So what was she telling me? She was saying that, yes, that was a hard circumstance. I did not want that to happen. But the kid is here, and the kid is mine too. So I was really appreciative of the fact that that maternal instinct is there. And as pro-lifers, we have to take advantage of that. Moms want to protect their kid. Another huge memorable experience of mine was when we were at March for Life. So we had a bunch of kids come from Naples, Florida, and from Jacksonville and Orlando, and we were at the March for Life. And it's always great taking teens. Like, they're so overwhelmed by how many people are in this and want this to change. Like, they are just blown away because we don't get that support in the media. And so one of the girls was pregnant, and nobody knew. And she's out there, she's walking around, around the Capitol and up to the Supreme Court, and nobody knows. And as time went on, she went to one of the chauffeurs, like one of our team leads, and was just like, I gotta make a decision, and they're like, we're here because of these situations. That's why all of these people came out, took leave, stopped working, made plans. Okay, they fled from California, Texas, Florida, all the way to DC to show support for what's inside of you right now. Okay, it is not a little thing. It's not a little matter. It's a little thing, but it's not a little matter. And she was like, I'm gonna do it, and that just like it brings tears to my eyes now. It's like that support is what they need, and they're just getting lied to like crazy. But if the community shows that support, they're gonna be strong, and they're gonna say, you know what, I'm gonna keep the baby. I'm gonna keep my baby. That's what they're going to do. It's natural to do that, you know. So that was really big. And the last one I want to mention, I'm gonna take the opportunity to throw it out there. In DC on 2016, when the blizzard came, right? So the huge blizzard in DC. Our numbers weren't as great that year because obviously there's a snowstorm, right? But there were still tons of people walking around during the march. Florida girl, I couldn't stay in the weather. Okay. So I had to come back in early because I was cold. And they're like, if you start, and all the Floridian kids were told this, if you start feeling like your fingers and toes are going numb, you need to go back inside. I know you want to be out here, but go back inside because it's going to be a problem having to take you guys to the hospital if you get hypothermia. So I was like, whatever. I'm just going to be that person. I'm going to go back, right? So I went back and I'm at the hotel and I'm watching the news. I'm watching the world news. Okay. They did not talk about the march. They did not talk about the march. They mentioned the march that many times. What in the world? There are 300,000 people walking around the White House right now, and it got absolutely no coverage. When I come back to Florida, I'm watching like the news again, and it's kind of a recap. So they say, and then this weekend, we had the pro-life, movement, and breaking news, Justin Bieber XYZ, right? So I'm like, okay. They mentioned the words pro-life movement march, right? So this is progress. And I feel like a few days later, I watched a segment on Earth Day, okay, Earth Day, and they said this. They said, we are so happy that 300 people came out to show their respect for Mother Earth on Earth Day. And they were going on about this for like 5 minutes, and I said to myself, there's a football stadium full of people walking around the White House, and it gets absolutely no coverage. And then 300 people show up to hug a tree, and they get 5 minutes of coverage on the world news. I said, wow. I was like, okay, that's the game they want to play? Okay, I get it. We got a problem, guys. If they're literally, that to me shows two things. It shows, number one, that they are afraid. You do not talk about Earth Day for a longer period of time than a football stadium of people walking around the White House if there is not something that you're trying to hide. And number two, I think they're really taking advantage of their resource, that they have the confidence of the American people that what they show is actually what's happening. And a lot of times it is, but a lot of times it's not. And I had I not seen that, I probably would have been a little bit more skeptical about people saying, oh, the media is against us. No, that was just in my face. I'm there. I'm in DC. I just left the march. This should be on the world news. This is the largest march in the human history of the United States of America. At our capital, absolute zero coverage. It was just, I was embarrassed by our media. I was embarrassed. This is ridiculous. But yeah, those are really the three that come to mind right now. So
Love it. And I think that's so cool how the three of those, in my opinion, build together into the point that you were making earlier about the different, not only roles, but different needs that we have in the pro-life movement, right? That we obviously we
yeah,
need more people working full-time in the pro-life movement, doing political stuff, doing educational stuff, doing pastoral stuff. But guess what? We need pro-life people working in the media. We need
yes,
pro-life people working in business. We need pro-life people working in all of these different areas that
absolutely.
pro-life stuff isn't just this separate thing that you either do as a hobby or that hobby becomes your profession. It's something that
Right.
should steep whatever stage of life you're in, whatever season of life you're in. This is something that should impact whatever it is that you're doing. And so I think that that's so cool how you mention it that way. And I think that brings us home to this last point of words of encouragement, words of empowerment, or maybe even suggestions for how people can get involved. You mentioned that you're on the board of Florida Right to
Yes,
Life. You mentioned that you've done work
absolutely.
with CBR and Students for Life. How can people get involved, and why should people get involved, in your words?
Okay, absolutely. So, why should people get involved? It is a personal decision, but at the same time, it takes a community to raise a child. And the community right now is saying that children are not our priority. Any community that says the kid is not our priority is a community that is not standing on solid ground, and it will fall. Most civilizations that take a negative approach towards their young, they don't last more than 200 years. So they have to take they need to recognize the importance of the preborn in our community. But it is a personal decision because it involves your willingness to help. This is not an easy fight. And making sure that your contribution is something that you're going to be proud of, I think, is essential. And that's why you want to find your niche. So if you enjoy speaking to young mothers, please, by all means, volunteer at a local crisis pregnancy center and be there. They want to talk to you, especially a mother with experience or a mother that's been in a similar situation or even a post-abort mother. If you have an angle that you can bring and offer to these young mothers in crisis, that would mean the world to them. And even if you don't, if you're just a friend, if you just want to be there, if you just want to help that girl know that she's not alone, that will be a huge help to them. If you want to take it more from the educational approach, there are a plethora of organizations that do nothing but share information on why it is critical to protect the unborn. If you literally go to Wikipedia and type in pro-life organization, you will get 100 different listings. I know this. I've emailed every single one of them. And they will be happy to grant you with resources to distribute in your community to talk about this in more detail. If you're looking to get politically involved, there are national chapters that have sub-chapters throughout the states, and Right to Life will be one of them. So there's a Florida Right to Life, there's a Georgia Right to Life, there's a Philadelphia Right to Life. Pretty much every state has a Right to Life chapter, and so if you want to get involved in that aspect, there is certainly one in your area that you can connect with, I am sure. And then from students, for student activism, Students for Life is just amazing. They have chapters at most, if not all, major universities and at sub-universities, community colleges. And if they don't have a chapter, guess what? You can start one. They will help you build a chapter at your local school. So there's no excuse. If you want to get involved, there are so many different ways for you to get involved. And your, personality, your niche is available to you. We are coming at this from so many different angles, whether it's radio, podcasts, media, politics, student outreach, pastoral care, baby drives, bottle drives, handing out flyers at the street corner. There's everything. Okay, you can do it in so many different ways. Life chain. They just stand outside and just hold hands so that people driving by can see people standing up, holding hands, showing support for mothers in crisis, asking them to keep their child. These things help. They make a difference. And so if you want to get involved, please take advantage of one of those. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to end it, that regardless of the stage of life, the season of life that you're in, regardless of your skill set, there's a home for you in the pro-life movement. We did an episode on this, the pro-life guys. We did, there's a home for you in the pro-life movement. I don't know, it was like 2 months ago from the time of posting this. And so check that out. Thank you, Jacinta, so much for making the time and joining me today on the podcast.
Absolutely, Cameron. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. And so for those of you who are tuning in, if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. If you have tuned in before, welcome to you as well. Want to encourage you to check out our other content, not only our other Humans of the Pro-Life Movement interviews that we post basically every single Thursday. Check out our flagship program, the Pro-Life Guys podcast. We post new episodes every Tuesday, often focused around apologetics and how to have better conversations. We also do a news program once a month called The Pulse. You can check that out as well. Find us on YouTube, Pro-Life Guys podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast catcher, wherever you're listening to this podcast, or go to our website, prolifeguys.com. You can also become a financial partner of the program and help us reach even more people with these tools that they need through our Patreon account, patreon.com/prolifeguys. Thanks a ton. Hope you will tune in again soon. Okay, bye.